Hey there, YouTube. It's me, your boy.
Who are you?
You may not know who I am, and that's okay. So to any newcomers here, or even current subscribers, my name is ACNL, and in this video, I'm continuing the reading of this novelization that surprisingly increases maturity nonetheless, all while being based on one of the most simplistic games of all. Welcome back to my review of Minecraft The Awakening. It's been a while since the story was last explored with the narrative elements that fueled its plot along the way. We'll be continuing the mysteries that follow with Chapter 2 of the comic, but before we begin, I'd like to, of course, give a disclaimer to the audience. This commentary involves detailed visuals that include mature content such as violence, language, blood, and partial nudity, all as part of the story itself. While this video will be censored in some areas, it will not fail to deliver such mature tones. So if you're not watching this in the most comfortable and private spaces, maybe somewhere with an unlocked door, I'd suggest giving yourself some preparation for the intensity of topics that are meant to be covered in this single chapter.
Wow. That's a lot of descriptors from an adapted comic. How is this all based from the simplistic block game again?
Well, to the artist tomboy-comics, the game was enjoyable on its own, but she must have taken some creative nature to shape her own epic out of its value.
Creative nature. Well, you did mention that this game doesn't actually have its own story. That's lame.
Oh, I believe the kind of story we're following was can end up being a little too much for an adaptation. So let's see what Chapter 2 can bring forward into the mysteries that envelop the Awakening tale. Chapter 2 starts in the perspective of the creator Notch, in a discussion with his father, a figure above himself. Notch finds himself wanting his father's input on a certain past decision, one such decision that involves the death of his brother. His father tells him that these thoughts may have yielded different results. The probability in one decision being outweighed by another is almost non-existent to the opinion. Though Notch blames himself for this tragedy, his father assures him this death was caused by another being, someone who carries darkness in their path, approaching the creator ever more. As the weight of the world resides on Notch's scale, this threat looms at the overworld for their own gain. And if the creator knows he has to fight for his world, this comes as no problem in battling the Ender whenever she may appear. In a dream, in a matter of contemplating the past, she can toy with Notch in many ways. She wants him to remember this past, to remember what came of his own decision, believing he will fall. And with the apparent teaching she notes of his brother, given by Notch with lies and deceit, it was through all guidance that led to his death. Taking account in the rules of his father, Notch once thought all was well. But so long as the Ender haunts him in ways to fight against, the lasting pain of his past is always present. I gotta say, in the knowledge that anyone can understand in Minecraft, the use of the Ender Dragon is something the story greatly holds well. To take a game boss with little background information and add them into the story in a twist of character is something that makes the story very unique for an adaptation.
Wait, so you're telling me that they took the dragon from the block game and turned it into a woman? That's...
But I also have to note of her being great on the eyes, and woo, that's a choice that makes the comic kit pretty strong in my taste.
You're joking.
Notch's threats seem to follow him even into the restful night, with his worries becoming more concerned for the safety of his wife at his bedside, as well as the daughter they both cherish. On a nightly stroll, Notch reflects on his brother. His name was Herobrine, and alongside Notch, he had a purpose of managing the world given to him. Though Notch only reflects on how foolish his brother once was, he can't help but feel it was all that he could read out of that man so long ago. And even as the night is late, company is ever present in the form of the Minecrafters, who are evidently a placement of the social presence of the game. Can't forget Adam, he had such a way with words. As Notch becomes easily caught up with the civilian antics in his town, he can't help but reminisce on the times he shared moments like these with Herobrine. The feelings latch on to Notch ever more, and while these thoughts only give him memories of the past, he knows deep down that his brother is only so far away, living alive somewhere new. Meanwhile in the overworld, Steve has traveled a fair distance in seeking out the answers he truly needs. All signs lead to a place he calls home, the village of his father, as an area that preserves peace, filled with plentiful farming that stands separate to the activities of the avid youth. It cannot be as stable without the guidance of the priest that upholds all hearts. As the priest holds a large role in his placement among all villagers, he is nevertheless a father to all, including the spawn he loves so dear. While Steve knows this place as the home of his father, it also stands as a home to his people and his true family at heart. No matter which way he makes himself welcome, he is always greeted with open arms. And as the youth are so ecstatic of his arrival, his true purpose came in seeing his father, as rare as these visits can seem. You okay?
I'm so touched. He's adopted, isn't he? That's adorable.
Well, you might not be adoring it for long. This comic shifts and tones all over the place.
No way. Why can't the story just stick with one thing?
With the stable place of Western reminiscence, Steve catches up with his father as usual, noting his recent endeavors when the slip is caught that he's not revealing everything up front. Given the guilt of this, Steve easily opens up about his new partner Mindy, to which his father is surprised at how he addresses such a character. With the quite open description, Steve does take account of many differences she has besides himself, looking back on the, incident he's had where anatomy never crossed his mind.
Yeah, why the hell isn't some raunchy anime?
Totally. Given these grand details, Steve's father is to believe there's a form of understanding that needs to be settled in meeting a different kind of person. But as Steve adds on to his own descriptive, his father is more intrigued at the details overall, and tells Steve that he wants to meet Mindy soon, to explain something that this spawn might not understand. Back at home in a surprising bath scene,
I never thought I'd see this blood game have a bath scene.
Mindy reflects on the memories of the stranger who once aided her in the darkness, remembering the trust and care he gave her in this time. As he soon left her in the hands of a woman raising her own orphanage, he gifted a pendant necklace to Mindy symbolizing their trust. For if he was ever unable to see the young girl again, this item would mean he would always be in her life, however far apart they may seem from one another. Though all the familiarities stay intact, Mindy cannot remember the face of the man who helped her. Seeing as this was such a troubling time in her life, the fragments of these events only make her frustrated with more thought. And when Steve is more curious to uncover his oddities, he doesn't mind opening up any closed doors. Mindy is of course uncomfortable with this perspective, and he doesn't mind grounding his decisions as he sees fit. To put her under his demand once more, he gives her the news of his father's interest being of importance. When she shows surprise by this emergence of her father, Steve clarifies his life as a spawn did not begin alone. He then tells her to be prepared for the next day, so they can head back to the village together. Mindy complies immediately, and the plans are set for the following morning.
So he's seen her natural blood twice now, and doesn't know what a woman is, does he? I'm split on whether to think it's logical or not when these village people are all he's ever known.
It's a bit hard to grasp for any reader, I assume, but as the sunrise comes the next day, they prepare themselves on a lengthy trip to take. As Mindy is surely curious of these newfound details of Steve's life, her thoughtful mind is laying on to the cocky temper that the spawn holds so strongly. This in mind gives Steve reason to order Mindy that their only business is seeing his father, mentioning that he wouldn't want a stranger such as herself becoming too close to the family he cherishes dearly. Upon their arrival, the children are acquainted to the woman naturally, and with this comes the first time she knows it is Steve's form of addressing her, as surprising as it can seem. Given the village's new guest, the priest makes himself comfortable to the visitor with ease, quickly becoming acquainted with her and the formal nature he takes. Though Steve feels all is settled in this simple greeting, his father insists they stay for the evening fall festival. It's through this kindness that Steve believes Mindy shouldn't feel welcome so fast, but his father assures him that all who enter are surely family. And as eager as the celebration may be in preparation, the father notes that Mindy is quite special to Steve's own knowledge.
Wow, that's sweet. It's real sweet. This village just makes the whole story better. Brings it back to wholesome times. Wait, no. I jinxed it. Something's gonna ruin this moment.
You bet it will.
No.
Under the priest's own roof, Mindy quickly becomes comfortable as her father addresses Steve's earlier thoughts. He wants Steve to understand what he had not fully learned through his many teachings as a spawn, detailing to him that the concept of a female can not only apply to seemingly animals, but humans like himself. As his father never knew if Steve would meet another human so close to home, the thought was never crossed that this knowledge would need its own explaining in truth. Even as Steve questions the truth through the amount of times he misread Mindy's features, this makes him angered that Mindy didn't clarify that she was female at all.
You stupid.
Given such a revelation, Steve doesn't know what to understand about Mindy much more, and this opens up the thoughts of what Steve has learned as a spawn from birth. His father then reveals that Steve has history with Master Chief. A strange twist to a childhood character of mine who I always played as in the popular game title. I cannot believe that one of my childhood heroes, Minecraft Steve, does Master Chief. What a discovery to unfold.
Hold on, you mean Master Chief like the Halo guy, right? What does he have to do with this block game comic?
It's the master true meaning of honey.
Feels, dude!
Once the check-in seems to be settled on both sides, the pair get prepared for the upcoming festival. And this time, all boys and girls of the village youth are gathered for the festival's main event. The day sits as the first of fall, where sundown brings the young together at a fire pit divided by two sides. A dance insinuates around the pit till the fire dies down for all participants, where each male and female will face each other oppositely, and each becoming mates for life. A village tradition, done for generations, as the father calls it. How beautiful, huh, Pell?
I don't know how to feel anymore. This story is playing with my emotions. Once I feel happy, I end up feeling disturbed again.
It's your loss.
Why'd you do this to me?
As Mindy sees the event come closer, she cannot seem truly comfortable around this new family without opening up to the father of how many emotions he's gathered since meeting Steve. The ways in which he's treated her as another human, given her values and certain actions, are clouding her mind. She understands he's had a reason for all the ways he's restricted her, but the decisions made by Steve are very unlike what Mindy had expected at all. Given this outlook, the father tells Mindy that he has some form of guilt on his own part, telling her that Steve's logical mindset is not similar to who he once was originally. As a child, the father was meant to take the place of his father as a successful priest for the village, but as he was following the guidance taught to him on that terrible night, a stranger's presence came all too near to their door. Steve, as he lay, was very frail and weak, crawling to hope for safety on his own instinctive. The young priest's father did not allow the spawn to be aided, believing him to be a human of bad intentions. As a trail of zombies followed close behind, Steve's odds did not look well for him, but the child disobeyed his own moral discipline and decided to act by what he believed was a part of his own fate. As an abandonment of his own teachings, he fought off the mobs that dared grasp at the spawn, and in giving Steve direction of where to go, it seemed the human was not understanding the language he spoke. Despite this, he continued his efforts where iron golems eventually situated the scene. Upon bringing the newfound human inside, the discovery became only much more distinctive. Steve was found to have an underdeveloped mind, similar to an infant at birth.
Oh!
With the only sense of direction being a small attention span, he seemed in need of the correct parental guidance to grow and learn.
That is so...
Through this discovery, the boy had belief in the idea that he was surely destined to help Steve.
Oh, he's such a pure little bee not knowing his way. It's so cute. I would make him food, read stories to him every night.
Well, that's pretty much how the boy managed Steve's life at the start. As he was born with no basic survival skills, as Mindy calls it, the knowledge given to any spawn upon birth was seemingly non-existent to him as he was found. Regardless, the father raised him alone, taking responsibility for the spawn in every form and fashion, raising him as seemingly a son. Given all the knowledge this growing spawn had learned in a short amount of time, including finding his own name through the studying of his alphabets, it helped him find his place in the world he knew and loved, shaping the identity in himself alongside the man who raised him, a father to Steve who will soon lead a village. Through the passing of time, Steve soon became his own man and left his family when he was well trained enough to lead his own life, finding ways to survive the outside and coming back to visit home every so often. As a son, so close to the old priest's heart, he was someone the father could be proud of, to call his own.
Here I am, crying again. Oh, this is so embarrassing.
I don't blame you for being so emotional. With this information, the father tells Mindy that deep down, Steve surely has a good heart. He may not express it in his current state, and Mindy can understand due to her past actions at fault. The father is ever so mindful, telling Mindy that in time, he hopes Steve will forgive. As the sun has passed and gone with the fire raging high, the festival commences its annual tradition of dance as all the young villagers stand and wait. Seemingly unknown to Mindy and Steve, both in their own worlds, some of the villagers begin to gather the two of them to join at the pit for a wondrous surprise.
Oh my gosh. It's a setup in the best way. How romantic.
With no blocks being played in harmony, the dance starts its routinely move on both sides, as Mindy kicks into the style for fun while Steve is experienced in all forms. Following the positions of all girls by her side, Mindy fully gets into the spirit, and Steve is only taking his view of what will become of these end results. Then the time comes for the fire to weaken and dim so low. All the village youth now face their true mates for life, and as Mindy realizes the outcome, she now looks forward in awe. Steve is, in truth, very displeased at the sight. Though his family members thought this through and believing the best for both of them, Steve hates the thought of being grouped with someone like Mindy and decides to take his leave.
Aw, so sad. This was my only comfort moment.
In a moment of his father's only reassurance, Steve doesn't want him to worry about the thoughts he may be feeling. Given such an unexpected twist to a lovely evening, the Spawn mostly wants to make himself comfortable back at home, bringing Mindy to his side and saying goodbye to his father and all family. Soon getting back home, the pair get inside while Mindy reconciles on the enjoyable night they shared. She notices Steve has been silent for the most part, until he tosses the bag of hers that became the sole reason she went under his rules. She's confused by this new move, with Steve running her out of his house despite all the work she's needed to do. It's in this manner that Mindy still feels guilt on her own part, wanting to keep pushing the responsibility she's upheld and paying Steve back for everything she owes him. Steve doesn't care for this job any longer and wants her out. Mindy then states that it was due to Steve's father of her entire view being changed for this decision, to which Steve is furious of all this past being known. Because of this knowledge being Mindy's driving force, she wants to be responsible for her work while fighting Steve and accepting these feelings. He leans into the decision reluctantly, only in hopes that Mindy will get out of his hair once she's finished. Preparing for the day ahead only comes in the form of the two getting their own chance at rest, with Mindy reaching into her bag before bed, taking account of the one thing that stuck with her memories all the same. Meanwhile, in a place far outside the overworld, the End houses the presence of a being so far into her own ambitions, with a layout to the board that she brings attack into play. The single piece she has chosen will be all that she needs for her next move. End of Chapter 2.
Okay, that's a mix of emotions high and, well, even higher. But these adult themes were straight up intense. Good gosh, this is all in the second chapter? My man, what the heck were you reading at such a young age?
Well, I liked Minecraft and I liked comics, so I just seemed to go along with it as the story progressed.
Is that a normal, you'd say?
In my standpoint, yes. But I was maturing at the time as a teen, so I guess it's not all that crazy.
Okay, but there was also the adult theme spread throughout. As an adaptation of the block game, it seems very out of bounds to my taste.
Oh yeah, because while games can impact people in many ways that can yield quite surprising results in creativity, the work that's influenced separately through fiction is a different category in its own right. With that said, the characters introduced in the second chapter seem to add a really great blend to the plot of the series. You have the start of it all capturing Notch himself, one of the lead creators of the game, influencing so many people through his work. The wondrous introduction of the gorgeous Ender, inspired by the game's threatening Ender Dragon, the boss of the End. And as one final addition to the main cast, Herobrine, the Minecraft legend that had much popularity in all sorts of fiction from a time long gone. Beside these very constructed characters was the implementation of additional game ideas. The villagers were structured into the plot in a very sensible manner, bringing life to the village and a warm change to the setting. Including the role of the priest, being a father figure to Steve, was a great way of making the plot remain structured. These great additions to the cast made this chapter feel heavily structured in separating the plot between, might I call it, seemingly different worlds. Notch's own narrative was a nice way to introduce the chapter, and this set of events was all quite interesting despite the unnecessary YouTuber portion, since it was all filler to idolize the social following of the mid-2010s.
Whoa, this game feels like a fallen king from these attributes. I mean, with the YouTubers being the forefront of its semblance, the fanbase must infect itself more than the game ever could.
And that's exactly why this comic seems like a relic of its time compared to the ways in which the game's adapted nowadays, with the most exposure of community content coming from YouTube animations. Minecraft may be a game that often generates a change of view in recent times, but The Awakening is a comic that I feel acts as almost a time capsule of the once creative ways that the fanbase express themselves. In adapting the game's likeness to works of fiction through books and stories of different kinds, there was just a set time period that the community has so much material to work off of, making the game look almost inferior to how expansive people like Tomboy had taken it to be.
So I suppose that wraps up Chapter 2. I can only guess just how intense the next part may come to be.
Not to mention the various emotions leveled throughout the story.
Oh, you'd love to see me react again, wouldn't you?
I'd sure love to see you speak in place of all the audience.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Oh, and do it for me.
This ain't Orochi. I messed that one up. This story is playing with my emotions. Once I feel happy, I end up feeling disturbed again. Again. What am I saying? Why do you do this to me? So I suppose that wraps up chapter 2. I can only guess. What am I saying anymore? Alright, let's try it again.